All right, welcome to the show, everybody. It feels awesome to finally be back in the studio. It feels like it's been, a month since I've been in here. I don't know if that's actually how long it's been, but that's certainly what it feels like. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Of course, I just got back not too long ago from Miami. It was a wonderful vacation. While I was there, I did the PBD podcast. You should definitely go check that out. Just type in PBD podcast, Kyle Kulinski, into the YouTube search box. They're a very, I know I've discussed this before, but for those of you who haven't heard, they're a very entrepreneurial type, self-help guru type, right-leaning, businessy podcast. And I felt like it was a good idea to take some left-wing perspectives and go to the lion's den and sort of joust in there and give people a different perspective that maybe they haven't heard before. And I think we held it down, man. I think we did a good job. If you go and read the comments, which is something I normally don't do, but I made an exception for this because I wanted to see what their audience was thinking. It certainly looks like, many people in their audience are sort of rethinking some basic assumptions they have about politics and economics. And look, that's all you can ask for, right? All you can ask for is to start somebody down a path and, see where they end up. And so definitely a positive experience. Man, I loved being in beautiful, sunny, 80-degree weather with the nice light breeze. And, it's 70 degrees at night, which is like this time of year, that feels ridiculously beautiful. But now, of course, I'm back in New York where it's actually not too cold today. It's going to be like 55 or so today, which is good for this time of year for New York. So anyway, we're back on the grind here, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So I'm going to tell you guys about the new YouTube changes in just a second. There's quite a bit to say about that. I got the stories about Trump's tax information that was just released. I want to give everybody the important bits of that. I think that it was sort of like a bulk dump, and then I don't feel like the media has done a good job focusing on the parts of that matter. And so I'm going to show you guys the parts that matter. And then later on in the show, we have yet another billionaire, this time the Home Depot co-founder, coming out shitting all over, his words, fat, lazy, stupid workers, and saying that socialism has killed motivation to work. Hilarious. I'll break that down in with 50 facts that refute his dumbass. And then later on, George Santos is praised for being a pathological liar. This is the state of our politics now. There are people on the right who are like, I love this guy, George Santos, because he owned the left by pathologically lying. And Benjamin Netanyahu takes the mask off completely. So there's quite a bit to say about that. All right, so here we go. Yesterday, Lilith sent me an article from Social Media Today and told me, hey man, YouTube is rolling out some new changes, so just be aware of that. Now, Lilith apparently heard that from the Discord. Shout out to the Secular Talk, Kyle Kulinski Show Discord. You guys are keeping me in the loop because honestly, I didn't even know about this. I didn't see any articles about this. I didn't hear any whispers through the grapevine. I have a YouTube rep. I don't know if he even knows about these changes that are coming, but I wanted to share them with you. So the gist of it is, and we're going to watch a little bit of a video here on this in a second, but the gist of it is they are cracking down more on cursing. Now, YouTube, for those of you who don't know, it kind of goes in waves, right? There are times where YouTube are more live and let live, hands off, let the cream rise to the top, let's not be too restrictive. That happens sometimes. And then at other times, when they want to be more advertiser friendly, they decide, hey, if we crack down on the cursing, if we crack down on the risque borderline material, well, that'll help us get more ad dollars. And so we're going to go down that path. So we've seen errors like this previously in YouTube. And it seems like now we have another more restrictive era coming back. So let's watch this.
Stop everything you're doing right now. I don't care how important it is. I have news that'll blow it out of the water. And trust me, you're going to want to get this sitting down. So if you're in the operating room watching this, it's time to put down the scalpel and pay attention. YouTube has just made a massive change to the platform, and in standard YouTube fashion has done a horrible job at communicating it to the community. So it's up to me, Ace Reporter Charles here, to tackle this topic from the front lines, just riding through like Paul Revere, lighting the lanterns, letting you all know that another awful set of changes are coming to YouTube that have already overnight tanked some creators' source of income from their channels, demonetized like half of their videos with no explanation, and more channels are soon to follow as this continues to roll out. And I'll let it be known right away here that yes, my channel has been hit extremely hard by this new shadow policy that they've slid into the equation here. The policy is, if you say any swear word or anything less than proper in the first 8 seconds of a video, you instantly get demonetized for it no matter what. There is no wiggle room. If you say anything that's not squeaky clean Weenie Hut Jr. and you let that rip in the first 8 to 15 seconds of that video, well, you're just getting blasted, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, to a lot of you, hearing that's probably not surprising because the previous policy that all YouTubers were playing ball with was the first 30 seconds you couldn't say fuck. You couldn't say anything super hard like fuck. Because if you did, you'd likely get demonetized. But now, it applies to the first 8 seconds, and all profanity is being treated equally, except for a couple of exceptions like hell and damn, I guess. Maybe even ass. You might be able to squeeze a little ass in there in the beginning, I suppose, if the YouTube Illuminati is feeling generous with their policy enforcement that day. Now, while that's all pretty clear about just not using any profanity whatsoever in the first 8 seconds, it gets a little muddy when it starts talking about a focal usage of profanity throughout the video. It says, such as a mention in every sentence, but that's not exactly how they enforce it. For a lot of the videos that have been demonetized, at least on my side, it's not like I'm going around hitting them with like Saints Row dialogue. It's just very confusing what's actually triggering this new demonetization wave that's sweeping through like a plague. For example, RT Game, again, isn't exactly a creator known for like intense swearing and getting out of control and unhinged and saying profanity in every sentence like this policy here. And yet, so many of his videos just got demonetized. And he's also not someone that does a whole lot of cursing and swearing like a sailor in the first like minute of his videos either. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's not as clear as these rules seem to think that it is. Also, this rule applies retroactively to every piece of content ever made, even as far back as like 2007. So...
Well, that's not good for me. Look, somebody said, I forget who said this. Oh, I think I was at a Breaking Points live show and I was meeting some people who were in the audience after the show. And one of them were like, hey man, great job. You finally like reeled it in a little bit with the cursing. And I gotta be honest with you guys, that's all unintentional. Like I never made a decision like I'm going to curse significantly less. But I mean, you guys who watch the show on the regular basis know a lot of it just comes out at random times and I'm not thinking about it. And it's just, you know, the way I talk, right? So if I did reel it in a little bit, that's, I guess that's a victory. I don't know. But if this is retroactive, good googly moogly. Now, I went back and looked at the back end of my own YouTube channel, and I didn't see a whole bunch of the yellow icons, which would show, hey, this video is now demonetized, which is a good thing. But of course, I did see a massive drop in revenue. Now, to be fair, I know that, you know, we haven't had normal shows the past week or two. And also, usually at the beginning of the year, advertisers really reel it in. Advertisers like to spend more at the end of the year, I guess around the holidays. At the beginning of the year, they spend less. So it's hard to determine what amount of that is attributable to YouTube policy changes versus what amount is, you know, other factors. But I mean, if they crack down on cursing in a way that's like, hey, and who knows, this might be what they do. Any cursing in the video at all, and it's full demonetization. Well, that is quite restrictive. The first 8 seconds to 30 seconds, no hard curses. I guess I'm not too surprised by that, but this is being framed as a change. You know, I had thought for a while that already was the case, but if they do, you know, a more restrictive approach to cursing, that certainly doesn't bode well for me. Not because I'm like trying to curse, but because oftentimes it just comes out, and especially with the subject material that we cover, like we oftentimes are covering very serious political news stories, and it's almost hard to discuss the current state of the world without sometimes sounding like a sailor. By the way, I don't even know, where did that phrase come from? Like, oh, he swears like a sailor. Like, do sailors swear a lot? If anything, I would have guessed like maybe pirates would swear more. Why isn't it he swears like a pirate? Anyway, and there's also the stereotype that sailors are massively gay. Anyway, I digress. So, yeah, I mean, I can only hope that this is not true. But then again, this is also why we have a Patreon. We created the Secular Talk Patreon after the first adpocalypse. So that was when there was some sort of standard mainstream brand ad that ran on like a white nationalist channel. I think it was like Nestle, if I remember correctly. And YouTube sort of panicked because there were a bunch of articles criticizing YouTube for running these ads on some fringe channels. And they decided, let's totally demonetize all of news and politics overnight. And that was fucking terrifying. You guys remember, I mean, shit, I was nearly in tears. You don't know what you're going to do if it's like the main source of your income. And so basically, I took it to you guys, the audience. I don't remember how big the channel was at the time. If I had to guess, maybe 400,000 subs or something like that. And I said, look, if you guys, like the show, can you donate $2 a month, $5 a month, $7 a month, whatever it is. So we have basically a way of continuing because YouTube just pulled the rug out from underneath us. And thankfully, you guys came through and you saved the show and you made it so that, we don't have to care as much about the whims of the YouTube gods. And we still have the Patreon running today. A lot of people tip for the show. And I want to thank every one of you from the bottom of my heart, because if it wasn't for you guys, there would be like zero security on this platform. And also, because some people would say, okay, that's crazy. Why don't you go to Twitch? Well, Twitch also has their own issues. Like they're arguably way worse. I've noticed that they're pretty ban happy, and they've gone through waves of crackdowns. I mean, I guess they do it in a slightly different way, but it's very volatile without support, and you guys came through. And so if you guys do want to support the show, the link is in the video description box of basically every video. You can support Secular Talk on Patreon, and you can support Crystal, Kyle, and friends in there. But let's watch a little bit more of this, because my understanding is that's not the only change. So let's see what else he says.
Like half of my catalog of videos is now demonetized. This happened to a ton of creators, and because it's a new policy, yet every old video ever made now has to play by those rules, so it ended up with so much being demonetized. But it's very vague when it comes to the enforcement here. Let me give you just 2 quick examples from 2 new videos I made. Both of these were monetized as of 12 hours ago. So this first one is just called Good News. It is legitimately just going over very wholesome topics. The focal point is not on swearing, it's not a potty mouth kind of video. It's just going over wholesome topics. But in the intro, I said shit pretty early. This week's been pretty doom and gloom with a lot of awful shit coming to light all across the internet. So me saying shit here is clearly what triggered the demonetization flag. Okay, a little upsetting, but they've now made these rules clear and they're retroactive, so I get it. But here's an example of one that makes no sense at all by their new rules. This is me talking about Godslap Issue 2 being out. Don't worry, I'm here now. I know for the last few months you've been cold and afraid, the uncertainty eating away at you, wondering what comes next. Well, I'm here to show you what comes next. It's issue 2 of Godslap, baby. I probably don't need to explain what Godslap is, you already know. It's our comic book series that's become more popular than the Bible. There's no profanity at all, not even low-level profanity. I don't mention ass or butt or anything like that at all. I'm just...
See, this is more in line with my experience. Whenever a video gets demonetized and you watch back the video or you think about what I say in that video, it usually feels kind of random. The only thing that I've found is kind of consistent is if you're touching a topic that is super controversial or foreign policy related. So whenever I talk about Israel or Saudi Arabia, those, and used to be Syria back in the day, those, it was very consistent that you get demonetized. Like 70-80% of those videos would get demonetized. But this is the other aspect to it, is that sometimes it just feels like super duper random. And look, that's upsetting and depressing and weird. And, I wish that they were a little more transparent with how they do this. And I also wish, to be honest, look, we have the settings on our YouTube channel and others do on their YouTube channel. It's like, is this for kids? And of course we say, no, this is an adult show. This is news and politics and information. And this isn't for kids. And so if you have the settings on that for all the videos, then why shouldn't you allow cursing? It seems like, I mean, what are we in the Puritan era? Are we Victorians? Like, what's going on here? But no, it's YouTube always on a whim, just changes and goes through eras, and it comes in waves. But unfortunately, this is a little bit of a double whammy too, at least for news and politics, because if they crack down more on cursing and they maintain basically the new algorithm, which you guys know because we've talked about a number of times, where the YouTube CEO said in an interview, we're going to prioritize authoritative content when it comes to news and politics. Well, that's a double whammy, because your stuff doesn't spread nearly as far and wide in the algorithm because our stuff is not viewed as authoritative content. And they take away, the ability to monetize any video where there's cursing. That's a double whammy. That's doubly not good. I would much prefer it if they went back to a system where It was more of a meritocracy, more of a cream rises to the top type thing. And then back in those days, as longtime viewers will be familiar and know very well, we would regularly dust CNN. Like, we used to get way more views per video than CNN. But now that CNN is sort of super served by the algorithm, that's not the case anymore. And so, certainly not good. Let's watch a little bit more of this video.
Talking about Godslap and getting excited. It's a comic book series we've worked on for a long time, and I made this video just going over everything and letting you all know that it's available at godslapbook.com. This wasn't supposed to be an ad for it, but it's a great example here because there is no profanity used throughout this video until 5 minutes and 37 seconds into it after giving a plot summary for issue 1. Surrounding Sal, finishing them off with more finger flicks which blow their fucking head off. They share a brief conversation. So what could have possibly triggered this demonetization? Is it using profanity at all that's going to...
Yeah, it's either that or it's the blowing their heads off thing where they say, oh, that's gory and violent, even though it's literally in a comic book. It's far too restrictive. It's just too restrictive. It's these dictates from above that sort of stifle creativity of the YouTubers and of the talent. I really don't like it. Now, he also goes on to say there's another change in regards to like violent video games. So I guess they used to be a little more hands-off with violent video games, and now they're going to crack down more. But look, there's a lot of YouTubers who are gamers, and I'm sure some of them primarily play violent video games. With all of the information that we already have about violent video games, namely that they don't lead to violence and mass shootings, I don't know why you'd crack down like this, man. I mean, Japan has just as many violent video games as we do, and they have, like, no mass shootings. Why is that? Well, they have very restrictive gun laws. It's nearly impossible to get a gun. So, they've done very detailed studies on this to determine, hey, is it violent video games that lead to shooting? And it turns out, no. It turns out when somebody's playing a video game, first-person shooter, and they're killing people or zombies or things or whatever, they're able to make the distinction. This is fake life. In real life, it would be wrong and bad to do this. So, again, it's just far too restrictive. And I really hate the way these social media companies and, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Insta, even though I don't have one, like the way that they, and actually I don't know if Insta does this, to be fair, but like the way they just casually change the rules, it's not really a transparent system, and then you get hit retroactively. The retroactive thing is crazy. Like, they make a change, it's like, oh, by the way, this applies to every single video you've ever posted. Well, that's not fair, right? That's not fair at all. The amount I used to curse is preposterous. And again, none of it was ever intentional, just how I talk and how stuff comes out. But yeah, not good, man. Not good. So hopefully YouTube reverses this or gives us more information on it or makes the policy more reasonable. Because, yeah, as much as this might hurt this channel a little bit, we always have you to fall back on. There are some creators who don't have as big an audience, so they don't have as many people to fall back on. And there's some creators who perhaps they won't make $1 anymore because they curse all the time or they play a certain video game YouTube doesn't like. I really, really don't like this. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.